You're listening to Beyond Business, the business podcast about things that aren't on the balance sheet. You will hear from experts on work-life balance, living a fulfilled life, and making a bigger impact around the world. If you believe in purpose and profit, then settle in for a great episode of Beyond Business. Now here's your host, Executive Life Coach, Kevin Hoover.
Welcome back to Beyond Business. I'm here with Eddy Smits. He and I have a lot of things in common, primarily helping kids, but he's got a very unique story. Eddy, thanks for being here. How in the world do you go from being a regular clown to being a hospital clown?
Funny story, actually. I was a clown. I was clowning. I was doing birthdays and all this stuff. And there were only two people there who did like sort of interview and stuff. And they were really honest with us. And they said, look, we have some money here and we would like to spend it on clowns and hospitals. But actually, we really don't know how or what. So that took a lot of pressure off. And on the other side, it gave a lot of pressure, of course. But that's how I rolled in, actually. And the advantage was that we were pioneers and we could experiment and we learned along the way and started with two clowns and we ended up 13 after 10 years or something. So yeah, I had to learn everything by experimenting and by failing. But again, it's a great way to learn, of course. So that's a little bit the story. Yeah.
How long were you a clown in the traditional sense? You know, when we think of clowns, we think of the comedic clowns, you know, in the circus or in the performance spaces. How long did you do that before you entered the hospital?
I started in 1993 as a clown, and I started hospital clowning in 1998. So five years after I started being a clown. And I did the work for 10 years. And after that, I mainly trained clowns to do the work, actually. So that's a little awesome. Bit my thing as a clown. But it were like, for me, it were the most 10, there's nothing, I never learned more in these 10 years in any other field humanly possible, about people, about children, about life, actually. It was a school for me, a school of life for me, actually. Yeah.
That's interesting. Do you recall, you know, I know in my work with kids, with my own son and the other kids that we serve through our organizations, they are really incredible teachers for adults. Is there a particular, any lesson in your years of being in a hospital, high emotional, I imagine just the emotions that you got to experience were just ran the spectrum. Was there a lesson that stands out that one of the kids may have gifted you?
Absolutely. Let me tell. It's just a short story, and I'll tell you the story, sure. And then you know exactly why I am so passionate about hospital clowning. So there was this girl that I had to visit, and she was 8 or 9, and she had the doctors give her a week max, and so I asked the parents to come in and stuff, and they wouldn't let me in. So, but that was normal. I mean, there were a lot of parents who were like, no, we don't need a clown now because there's a lot of grief. And I had something like, okay, I'm not leaving it with this. This is not, I want to get into the room, whatever happens. And so I took a big leap and I said, listen, what you can do now, what will be good for you and the child, but especially also for you, is let me in and see what happens. And it will be a great experience. And then I said, yeah, but the whole family is there. And then I said, okay, the merrier, the better. It's even better then. So I took a leap of chance. I talked myself into the room. And when I came in the room, it was rather dark and the whole family was there, right? And it was like, you could hear a mouse walk through the room. It was, some people were crying. It was really, the atmosphere was really bad. And the child was just sitting on the bed. So I observed it and I sat beside the child and I had to do something, right? So I asked her, I said, do you know why everybody is so sad here in this room? And then she answered me, no, I actually don't. So I was a little bit startled by that, but I kept my role as a clown, right? And I kept curious. I stayed curious and I said, okay, why is that? She said, yeah, well, my parents told me that when I die, I will sleep forever. And I responded as a clown, yeah, that's true, right? You sleep forever. And I raised my voice so that I was sure that everybody could hear it. So I got everybody's attention at that point. And then she said, well, then I really don't know why everybody is so sad, because sleeping is my favorite thing to do. And that story, that moment, and I tell the story a lot because that defines how intelligent children are, how they can deal with things much better than we adults. And that's also a story that is really close to me. And she did actually die the same week. And until this day, that has to been, I think that should 2003, 2004. I still get a Christmas card every year from that family until this day.
Really?
Yeah. A written card every year. Yeah.
Wow. So you really changed their last few days. Yeah,
I changed their lives. I changed the families. I changed my life too, actually.
Mm-hmm.
My life changed at that day. I went from I don't know what it did something to me. Of course, there are more stories of children that were in their last days or weeks but this was so to the point, was so right, was so can't explain it. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, and that's also why I learned so much in this period about children, about parents, about life, and that's what I'm taking away, and that's what I want to share with people, actually.
So powerful. I mean, it's I've been on the parent side of that equation in a very different way, and so I understand the no, not right now. The way that I understood it from our perspective, my son was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in 2019. He beat it, but we spent 2 years in the hospital, adjusting and chemo and all this. So we had, the dogs would come in, and the Spider-Man would come in, and so I've been on the parent side of that equation. So I do understand the not right now, but thankfully there's people like you who can see what we need, even though we can't. So with that comes probably is there any kind of emotional or mental challenge that you face as coming in as the clown, and the relief in that you can see? I know friends that, I know certainly what we went through emotionally and mentally. Is there anything that from your job perspective that during that time that you kind of wrestled with?
Yeah, I mean, the visits themselves, it's like the clown role protects you, right? You are at that point, you're not you are the clown. You act as the clown. But of course, consciously you don't take it home, but unconsciously you take these things home. And that's also after, I did it for 10 years. And I compare it a little bit with a bucket, right? And each time is a drop if you lose these children. And at some point your bucket is full. And I know the last months that I did the job, I couldn't do an hour, and then it was finished, and it just finished. And that was the point I said, okay, I have to stop now, because I did an hour, and my energy level was gone, and then I still had to visit a few kids, and that was not fair for them, that I couldn't bring myself up to the energy anymore. And that's when I said, okay, I'm really going to stop now, when I'm going to support the organization. I'm still supporting the organization until this day, actually. But then I did clown training for 5 or 6 years. I trained clowns to go in hospitals. But that's impressive. It eats on you. It's slowly but surely. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I think that's the hard part. I think that's what I think. I can understand it because I've been in that situation where I understand the relief you would bring in that situation. I can see my son, the dogs would come in, the sort of the care dogs, and they would jump on his bed, and it would just bring this joy. He's hooked up to machines, and it would bring this joy in that moment. but it would also give us something else to talk about other than being sick or medicine or pain or
that's the thing.
Or anything
that's
like
the
that.
thing. That's the thing. People think we are going in for the children, but we are going in for the adults just as well, and sometimes even more. And that's good. That's you have the two. That's really good. That's that's extra.
How soon did you realize that was kind of what was going on, that you were going in, of course, to see the kids, make the kids smile, but how soon did you realize, wow, this is really affecting the parents positively as well?
It was very fast, but in the beginning we had to learn everything. So the first months it was really trial and error, and we made so much mistakes. But we soon we got the recognition of the parents immediately. So you go into a room and you have this thing going on, and you leave the room, and sometimes parents they came after you and say, "Oh, thank you, this was so great." Or at some point you saw parents smile or cry, or you saw an emotion, and so you knew, okay, I'm hitting both spots here. It was really obvious, actually. But in the beginning you were so focused on what was going on that you didn't see it. But after a while you got more relaxed and you saw more what was going on. And also after a while the comments of the nurses and stuff, also they said, "Oh, it's so nice that you are coming." The whole atmosphere in the unit changes after you guys have come. So you got the recognition, and that was good. That was good because that was really powerful and really motivating for us to keep on doing the job and to search for more funding so we could do more hospitals and stuff. So that was motivating.
Yeah, I can imagine. That is a relief to everybody, the work that you were doing, because the nurses get bogged down in it, I would imagine. And so it's a good energy. You talk pretty extensivly about the additional skills you needed to develop. Aside from being a clown, you've been a clown for 5 years, so I assume you had that down pretty good. But you really talk about developing strong leadership skills, and I imagine persistence and resilience and all that. What were some of the things that you really focused on when you were, as far as additional skills outside of being a clown? What did you focus on?
Well, actually, we put the focus on the child and not on yourself. As a clown, you're asked to come to a party or to entertain people, and all the initiative has to come from you. You have to do some balloons or some magic or whatever to entertain people. And in hospitals, it's the other way around. So what we did absolutely wrong in the beginning is we had our balloons and we had our magic tricks, and we came in to entertain the children, but that didn't work. Because sick children they react totally different than healthy children. Healthy children, when they see a clown, when you just see him, they start laughing, and sometimes you don't have to do anything anymore. But sick children, there's it's a little bit like they are in a bubble and they protect themselves, and that's normal because hospitals are not or no attractive places for children. And so the biggest mistake also beginning clowns make is that they come in and they want to perform. What we needed to switch is not perform, but listen and see what was going on. What was going on in the room? Was the parent there? What was the parent do it? Is the child there? How does it respond to you? Does it look up, or is it just playing on his iPad? All these things that were going on, you had to observe. And after a while, you got real good at it. And in a few seconds, you knew exactly which trigger you needed to push to get to the child. And in the beginning, it was searching. You tried and you did this and you did this. This worked. This didn't work. But after a while, I always said to beginning clowns, come into the room and do nothing for 10 seconds. And I can assure you, 10 seconds for these people, that's like a day. To do nothing, but just observe and see what's going on. And I think that's the biggest thing we needed to learn. And then also we needed to show leadership. You don't only deal with a child, you deal with the parents, you deal with the nurses, you deal with the hospital staff. I remember in the beginning when we did our visits, at some point there was a cleaning lady and she said, no, you can't go into that room. And I thought, because the floor was still wet. I used to remember my mother when she was cleaning the house and the floor was wet. She said, "Don't go into the room, stay in the room," because I just mopped the floor, right? So I thought, okay, the floor is wet, right? But no, even the cleaning lady had just decided, no, that's not the child a clown needs to visit. I mean, you have no authority at all as a clown. But still, you need to convince parents. You need to convince doctors. In the beginning, the hospitals where we did, they really looked down upon us. They didn't grasp it. They didn't understand it. But the more we came, of course, the more we were of value. And the nicest compliment we could have is we were in a room and sometimes a doctor came in. And I always had a doctor's coat on as a clown, and then they say, colleague, how are you? So that was, at some point we were accepted and they understood what we were doing. But it took years. It really took years for them to understand what we were actually doing. But of course, that's the merit of what we did, and that's also a proof of the work that we do and how important it is actually that if you can convince doctors that there is real value in these visits, then that's a good sign, I think.
Yeah. So today you're the connector between a parent and a child. I can see that being part of your work when you were visiting the hospitals. The parents not knowing, in the case of the story you told, the parents not knowing what to tell the child having their own interpretation of it. And you kind of being the bridge between those two mental stories. How is the work that you do today? Why is it so important in the larger landscape of the world?
Well, the most important thing is I go by the phrase don't take parenting too seriously. That's the phrase I use. And we don't know what we are doing. And I say we because I'm a parent too, and I've got two. We really don't know. When I was young, I remember we had a phone with a cord that was like twirling up, and you could kill somebody if you threw the horn at somebody. That was the phone I grew up with. That was, let me think, that was the beginning of the 80s, right? I had this phone. And you saw the phone that we have now, you saw it in Star Trek. So, I mean, we never, as a parent, my mother and father never could have imagined how the world would look like now. So we have to acknowledge as parents that we don't know things. And that's a little bit the attitude of a clown too. We come into a room and we come in blank. We come in now. We don't have a past, we don't have a future, we come in now. And that's maybe the most important lesson or trick or whatever I can give to parents. Treat your child in the now. I mean, you don't know what it's going to become. You don't know what its interest will be. You don't know. Maybe it will be gay. I'm just, you don't know. And you have all these expectations of your children, but in fact, you don't know. And if you cut all the expectations and you take the child for what it is and you live in the now, I mean, you are the best example. Parents that have a child with cancer, they live in the now, right? They live with the child at that moment. And I think that's also how it should be with a healthy child. Live in the normal, in the now with your child. Enjoy your child. Don't correct it the whole time. I mean, let it make mistakes. Give it boundaries. That's of course important, but let it go. Just let it go and see what happens. And don't act, react. That's also what a clown does. He doesn't act, he reacts. He sees what the child does and he reacts, and then there comes another reaction, but he never starts himself. And maybe that's the most important thing I can inspire parents to do. But that's a difficult thing. I realize that's a very difficult thing for parents.
Why do you think that is?
Well, they mean well, and they don't know better. That's a little bit the problem. Nobody learns about parenting. You pick it up from your parents or from books or whatever, but nobody teaches you. You just think what you need to do. That's one. And it's a little bit the same as these doctors in the hospitals. They don't see the value of what you do. They don't see the value in this attitude. And that's not only parents. That's a lot of people are not living in the now. They are living in the past or in the future, and it's both. Yeah, I mean, tomorrow you can die, right? Nobody knows, and that's if you connect with children like that in that way, then your relationship will totally change. You are in the moment. You're playing. You're doing this. You're doing that. Of course, you need to plan some things, and of course, you need to look a little bit ahead. But I have the feeling most people say, "Oh, it goes so fast, right? You have children, it goes so fast." What I always tell them is, look now what's happening, and not if you say it goes too fast, you're looking back. Then you're looking back. You're not enjoying the moment, because then you wouldn't say it goes too fast. Then you are enjoying the moment, and that's the beauty of it. That's the way I try to explain it to people. Yeah,
I love that. I never thought of it that way. So you work with a lot of parents in helping them be better connected with their children, just like you've talked about. Being a clown in a hospital, obviously, is where you cut your teeth in doing that and seeing it out there. When parents come to you and say, "Hey, I'd like to work with you," is there something that they think they need from you, and then what they actually need, which obviously what they actually need is something different, or is it pretty well lined up?
Well, the most common thing is they want to change their child, but I have to change them, but they don't know. Yeah, it's let's just call it what it is. They say, "Yeah, my child is this and it's this," and they're talking about the child. And then a few sessions into the coaching, then I say, "Okay, now we're going to talk about you." Not about your child. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a wake-up call. But it is difficult in the beginning and that's also why it's so difficult to explain what a clown does at a hospital. And that's also why my mission is to, let's say, to empower as many people I can in the world. That's the mission, right? That's also why I want to speak to people. I want to inspire them, because then they have a taste and they can start thinking, and it goes down. And I can reach more people. So that's really something I want to do more, because I can reach more people, and the more the merrier. And the first thing I always tell them: play 5 minutes with your kids a day. 5 minutes. That's all. Can you promise me that's 35 minutes in a week? That's it.
Yeah.
And even that's difficult for them. And I say, why? Why is that so difficult? Yeah, but they want more. Yeah, sure, they want more. But if you play 2 hours with them a day, they also want more. So that's not the point. Just play 5 minutes with them. It's just you that have to be the discipline to play 5 minutes with your child. Yeah, but I don't know what to play. So you don't need to know. He or she will tell you what you can play or what she wants to play. Just play along. Yeah, but I don't know how. And then my phrase is, but you were a kid, right? You know how. You've got through this. You know exactly how. It's so funny. It's so, and once they get over that, that's a big step. That's a really a big step. So simple, big step. And that's also the thing I saw in hospitals. Let's say 20% of the time, when you went as a clown into a room, you just needed to play with the child. You didn't need to clown, or didn't need to. You came in and it was playing with something, and you looked and it invited you to play at some way, and you started to play with it. You just played with it. That was all. And then there was a parent sitting there, and you invited the parent, come and play. It was like, no, it's not. You're here now. Play with it. So it's so funny and so simple. So if you start doing these simple things, playing with a child, if you do that for let's say only 1 week, 5 minutes, the connection, it's day and night.
It really is. One of the things that you and I have in common is this idea of the hug. Our nonprofit organization is called Hug Your People. And it really focuses in on that, the ultimate connector, which I know you and I agree on as being the hug. How did that become part of your work? How did it become obvious that was something you wanted to really hone in on?
I have to thank that to my son, who's 6 now. And the first thing we do when we see each other in the morning is we hug each other. And then and in the beginning, when he didn't do it, I said, didn't you forget something? And then he came and hugged me. But now when I forget, he says, aren't you forgetting something? Now he's telling me, oh yeah, sure. No, that's the first thing we do, and the last thing we do every day, and during the day too. And he runs at me and says, "Hug attack." He probably has that from a cartoon. I think he has it from a cartoon, so I don't know where he gets it, but and yeah, that it's so powerful. It's really powerful. And again, it's so simple. Mm-hmm. It takes no effort. And it is so powerful to connect with a child. I have an older daughter of my previous marriage, and when we see each other, we hug. I see her once in a while because she's still living in Belgium, and I go to Belgium two times a year, so I meet up with her. We hug. It's the first thing we do, and the last thing when we say goodbye. It's powerful. It's just powerful. And I can't explain why. Probably some scientists will say, you get on endorphins, and he will tell you the whole story. And he can probably do a keynote of 3 hours of it, but just do it. It's so simple. Do it. Yeah. That's what we found too. We found, in situations of high stress, sometimes trauma, it is that it's a simple thing to do, but it means the most. And it really, for us, it was a transfer of energy. It really was. One of us is not strong enough in the moment. The other person hugs, transfer of energy, transfer of emotion, brings joy. Absolutely.
All of that kind of comes down. So when you speak on stage, like you speak to a lot of audiences, probably mixed audiences, some dads, some moms, some non-parents, some grandparents probably. What is the thing you hope they take away from one of your talks?
I think just to shift in perspective. I think after my talk, they look upon parenting and they look upon children with a total different perspective. I always tell the story that I told you now of the little girl. I always do that. And I always give examples in hospitals, in my real life. And I always say, do these simple things. Hugging is one of them. Playing is one of them. Start to do it. And your relation with your child will change dramatically. And if there are 100 people in the room and 20 people start doing it, wow! I mean, what kind of that's great. And these 20 people these children will grow up as totally other people than other children. There's so much going on now in these parenting groups on Facebook. And then when you're angry, just move yourself away and go to another room, deep in, and then when you calm down, go to your child. I'm sorry, but that's a lot of BS. That's just a lot of BS. A child may know your emotion. If you're angry, you're angry. It's like that. If you're sad, you're sad. You cry. If you're angry, you're angry. But afterwards, go to the child, explain, and give it a hug. A child has to learn anger too. It's also an emotion. It's a powerful emotion. But if it never sees you angry, if it never, you don't. It needs to see people that are angry, to know the emotion, to see that it's a normal emotion. But of course, what you do afterwards is more important than being angry. Of course, if you can avoid it, but nobody can. Sometimes we are stressed, we have things on our minds, and something happens, and you yell at it or whatever. I mean, half an hour ago, he came in the kitchen and said, "Get out of the kitchen." I mean, that's normal. But the other day, he spilled his cocoa over his pants, and I was very calm. I said, "Oh, what happened?" so Coco, I'm like, okay, let's get you another pants. I mean, sometimes you can do things without being angry, but sometimes, yeah, you have a lot of your mind and you snap out before you know it. You're just showing you are human. But going into another room and doing breathing exercises, I mean, come on, seriously. Yeah, but that's a little bit the problem of all the parenting stuff. But okay, could be me too, but we make it much too complicated. Don't overcomplicate it, people. Just keep it simple. That's of course what a clown does also. Please just keep it simple. It is simple. There's nothing to it. It's child asks you something, it's yes or no. It's not maybe or tomorrow or if you're good. No, it's yes or no, period. That's it. That's it.
So powerful, because I think we do overcomplicate things. And one of the things we've tried to do is, when my wife and I have disagreements, to be very careful on how we argue or how we disagree. And not to hide it, not to mom and dad are going to have a private talk. Some things we do need to talk privately without a 7-year-old listening to, but some things, but we've been very conscious over the last few months. So I'm really glad you said that, of saying mom and dad can disagree and still love each other. We can be mad in a moment, and then 30 minutes later we've moved on, and now we're happy and we're moving outside and we're going to do something else. And I think modeling that behavior for a child, even from the work you were doing in the hospitals, how does a child process pain? Or dire circumstances, or tough news, or that kind of. I think as a parent who spent a lot of time in hospitals, what you're really doing is you're processing a blatant truth. It's just this very, very in your face, no way around it, can't dodge, can't talk your way out of it kind of truth. And we're not trained to do that as people. And so I think the work you do really helps parents train the next generations to deal with those emotions a little more.
True. It's absolutely, and you're touching a very delicate topic here, is telling the truth to children. That they're doing it more and more now, but I know when I grew up, like so many years ago, a lot of things were just hidden for children, and they bluntly lie to children, and that's also the story that I told you is a proof that children can take much, much more than we think they can take, and we need to trust that. Just trust it and tell them the truth. And if you argue with your wife, same here. And in the beginning, they don't like it, and they say, no, they can't argue. Mommy and daddy can't argue. But they have to learn that mommy and daddy can argue, and that afterwards, mom and daddy talk it out. And that's life, and that's how they learn. Because otherwise, when they are going into a relationship, and their girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever is angry at them, they will panic and they will think it's abnormal, which isn't. So there's all these things, again, very simple, and show your emotion. If you don't show your emotion, why would they show it? They're going to hide things, and in a later stadium, when they go in puberty, they're going to hide everything from you. Everything. And they're going to lie and hide, and then trouble starts. Then it starts. Then the real trouble starts. I mean, then you can't spank them anymore.
Right. They fight back.
they hit back.
Yeah.
And they're right. But I mean, yeah.
That's amazing.
Again,
amazing. Eddy, I love the work you do. I think the work you do is very important. What's the best way for us to get in touch with you?
Yeah, social media. I think LinkedIn is a great place to connect. I love LinkedIn. I'm daily on the medium. I just connected me on LinkedIn. I do ask that we have a little conversation, or that they tell something about it, because I have so many people you connect, and then you don't hear anything of them. That's so sad. Just connect. At least say hi. How are you?
Thank you so much for your time today. It was a great conversation. I think anyone listening to this, parents, go to eddysmits.com, check out what he does, book a call with him, connect with him on LinkedIn, and ask your question. I think this is the time where we have to ask questions as parents even more. and Eddy is the expert. He is a coach. He's a speaker, a TEDx stage speaker, in fact, and he really does remarkable work. So, Eddy, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Got a lot from it.
It was really my pleasure, Kevin. Thank you.
All right, sit tight and we'll close this up. But this is Kevin from Beyond Business. Let's roll that out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Business. Please subscribe to stay up on new episodes. Follow Kevin on Facebook and LinkedIn at Kevin Hoover Coaching or on the website at www.kevinhoovercoaching.com. Until next time, make today matter.